It is 8:51 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 23rd day of June 2025. This is episode 1120 of Bitcoin, and this is where you get the signal. You get to skip the news. I will read to you the Bitcoin news that actually matters. I do it every day. My name is David Bennett. I'm your host of Bitcoin, and we've got all kinds of stuff that's going on today, so let's just get into it directly. Let's go right to Texas, because on June the 21st, Texas signs publicly funded Bitcoin reserve bill into law. It finally happened. Texas has a strategic Bitcoin reserve law. It's not fluff. It's not sitting in the House. It's not sitting on the Senate floor. It's out of all committees. It's out of the House. It's out of the Senate. It went to Greg's desk. Greg, the governor of Texas, sat down and signed it. Well, for those of you who know Greg, he's permanently sat down. I probably shouldn't have said it that way, but it's the truth. Anyway, let's just do this one. On June the 21st, 2025, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed Senate Bill 21 into law, creating the Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, a state-managed fund that will buy and hold Bitcoin as a long-term investment. Texas now joins Arizona as well as New Hampshire in passing Bitcoin reserve legislation, but is the first to actually commit public funds and create a completely separate reserve outside of the state treasury. Senator Charles Schwertner, the bill's author, said, quote, "We can buy land, we can buy gold. I think the state of Texas should have the option of evaluating the best performing asset over the last 10 years, end quote. The new reserve is separate from the state's general treasury, so the state can manage the Bitcoin without mixing it with regular state budget funds. It will be overseen by the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts, currently Glenn Heger, and guided by a 3-person advisory committee on Bitcoin investment experts, or rather of Bitcoin investment experts. The fund will be financed through legislative appropriations, investment gains, fees, and voluntary Bitcoin donations. I love Texas. It's my home state. I will always love Texas. You'll never be able to get the Texan out of me, but please, for the love of God, do not donate your Bitcoin to Texas. Keep it yourself. Force Texas to actually go to the open market and buy the actual Bitcoin. Please don't give the state any of your money. I'm just saying, and this is coming from somebody who desperately loves Texas, okay? Now, to ensure stability, the law allows investment only in digital assets with a market capitalization of over $500 billion. That is a threshold that is currently only met by Bitcoin. SB 21 was reviewed and updated before final passage, and the latest version has stronger risk controls, clearer investment rules, and limits on speculative spending. Another bill, named House Bill 4488, was signed earlier and works alongside SB 21 to protect the Bitcoin reserve from being redirected into the General Revenue Fund. Texas can manage its Bitcoin separate from budget politics thanks to its financial safeguards. HB 4488 also ensures the reserve will exist even if no Bitcoin is purchased immediately, so the state can develop a strategy. And supporters of the reserve say it's a hedge against inflation and a way to diversify the state's assets. Lawmakers and Bitcoin advocates believe it will keep Texas ahead in the digital finance game. Governor Abbott has been vocal about his pro-Bitcoin stance. Quote, "Texas is already the home of crypto mining. This session, Texas should become the crypto capital." I really wish you wouldn't use the word crypto. But Texas Blockchain Council President Lee Bratcher said that the state could invest tens of millions of dollars in Bitcoin. Quote, "It's still early, and the comptroller is going to utilize proven investing standards to determine how much to buy and when to purchase," end quote. Texas is moving forward while others are pulling back. In May, Florida and Arizona both killed or vetoed Bitcoin reserve bills, and Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs called digital assets untested investments and killed the state's bill there. But Texas stands alone in creating a fully funded Bitcoin reserve, unlike Arizona's unfunded version or New Hampshire's plan to hold Bitcoin in the existing state treasury. Beyond government, Bitcoin adoption is booming in business. According to Bitcoin treasuries, 223 public companies now hold Bitcoin. Yeah, we get it. And then they talk about Michael Saylor's strategy. We know, we understand that. But I had been waiting for this one because it is my home state of Texas. And that bill, SB 21, had been going back and forth, and it was in committee and out of committee and on the floor and then on another floor. And it's like it just wouldn't end. And then when they finally got it out of the Senate, my first question, which I asked directly to Governor Abbott on the X, not that he's ever going to read it, nor care if he did, but my first question and only question to Governor Abbott was, are you actually going to sign this thing? Or is this just going to be some kind of weird crap? And, well, he signed it. So now in the state of Texas, it's actually law. And it's a good fit because Governor Abbott's not wrong. Texas is kind of the Bitcoin mining capital of the world right now. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the second half. But first, keeping along with this whole what's going on in Texas and the governor, we've got another story that's kind of actually it's completely unrelated, but I find this interesting and I think it's going to end up being really important because Texas, there's been a bill passing back and forth, in the legislature about banning all THC products. And if you don't know what THC is, it's the active compound in marijuana that gets you high. It's the psychoactive component. Or the majority of the psychoactive component of marijuana. Well, they wanted to ban it, and they were getting close to banning it. In fact, they got so close to banning it that they passed a bill to actually ban all THC products in the entire state of Texas, and that would have also killed a hemp industry that could help cotton farmers because hemp grows in some really poor soils, and the cotton farmers in the panhandle of Texas have pretty much destroyed all the soils up there, so they need something. Well, this would have banned hemp production too. But then here comes Abbott, and he vetoes the damn bill. I couldn't believe it. I figured he was going to sign this bill. But there's a catch here, right? And this is where I think it's important. Let me get you this one from Fox 7 out of Austin. Abbott vetoes Texas THC ban. And here's how Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick reacted. Governor Greg Abbott's last-minute decision to strike down a sweeping prohibition on consumable THC products has ignited strong disapproval from his Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, even as it drew praise from the state's hemp industry. The action, taken just moments before the veto deadline on Sunday, ensures the continued operation of Texas's rapidly expanding hemp market and sets the stage for a contentious upcoming special legislative session. So here's what they're saying. And there's a couple of people in here, but I'm only concerned with Dan Patrick, and I'll tell you why here in a second. Patrick, a vocal advocate for the ban, who has publicly described THC-infused items as a, quote, poison in our communities, swiftly condemned the governor's move. In comments made on social media late Sunday, he criticized Abbott for maintaining total silence on Senate Bill number 3 throughout the entirety of the legislative session. Patrick suggested the veto would leave both enforcement officials and families impacted by high-potency products feeling deserted. Quote, this late-night veto, despite overwhelming support from legislative Republicans, law enforcement, and medical and educational professionals, as well as families who have witnessed the devastation caused by these potent substances, will leave many feeling abandoned. My deepest sympathies go out to those who testified and shared their painful experiences. I plan to elaborate further at a press conference tomorrow in Austin. Apparently, that's going to be sometime today, and I'm going to be very interested in what Dan Patrick has to say. But before I get into a little bit of commentary here, let's continue. The veto directly undermines one of Patrick's top legislative priorities during his nearly 2 decades in the legislature. He actively championed the ban, visiting cannabis retailers and producing investigative-style content to highlight what he characterized as dangerous business practices. But then, conversely, we've got the hemp industry. The Texas Hemp Business Council, which had vigorously lobbied the governor to reject the bill, celebrated the decision as a triumph for both the industry and Texas consumers. Quote, Governor Greg Abbott's veto of SB 3 reaffirms Texas' standing as a leader in business innovation and pragmatic governance, the council posted online. Quote, by opting for a balanced approach versus overreach, Governor Abbott has safeguarded a flourishing federally recognized hemp industry that provides employment for 53,000 Texans and contributes $4.3 billion in annual sales, end quote. The council contended that an outright prohibition would have driven consumers towards unsafe alternatives and jeopardized public health and choice. They said existing regulations established under House Bill 1325 already imposes strict limits on THC content, require comprehensive testing, mandates licensing, and governs labeling. The council also reiterated its support for sensible additions, such as restricting sales to individuals 21 and older, mandating child-resistant packaging, and implementing distance requirements from schools, provisions that they noted were rejected by those pushing for SB 3. Quote, consistent polling indicates that Texans do not favor a ban on hemp-derived products, the council said, commending Abbott for heeding the voices of over 150,000 petition signers and thousands more who shared their personal stories. So why is this important? Especially if you don't live in Texas, you don't follow the saga that has been the relationship between Dan Patrick and Governor Abbott. For a very long time, they have been in each other's pockets. Now, yeah, they've had like a couple of little squabbles here and there, whatever, tiny little disagreements in the grand scheme of things. But this one, Dan Patrick basically called Greg Abbott straight out in public on X. I've never seen Dan Patrick do this before, not to this degree. This is different. He's been doing this for 20 years. He's been lieutenant governor for longer than I think he's been lieutenant governor for longer than Greg Abbott has been governor of Texas, if I remember this correctly. In either event, this marks a complete departure between these two people. And as lieutenant governor, Dan Patrick is basically kind of second in command. And if anything happens to Greg, he ends up being governor. It's odd. And it's going to be interesting to see how this shit plays out in Texas. But I've never seen this before. And I think it's going to be very important moving forward, considering that it would have been stupid to ban something like the hemp industry in Texas, even though hemp technically doesn't have any THC. But I guess there were provisions in SB 3 that would have caused major problems and headaches to the point that people would just say, fuck it, I don't want to mess with this hemp stuff anymore. And $4.3 billion is nothing to turn your nose up at. And hemp is actually a really, really great product for farmers to be able to grow. It's really easy to grow. It has almost no diseases. It's like it almost gets no pest pressure, and it grows in some of the crappiest soil you can possibly imagine. I'm a soil nerd. I don't think it should be grown in those conditions. I think they should, be regenerative about their soil, but I ain't there and they ain't listening to me. So I just got to move on with that one. And also, isn't it time we just give up on this whole, oh, it's too potent. Dude, have you ever downed like, a bottle of Bacardi 151? Have you ever drank that shit? 151 proof rum, and somebody's telling me that, oh my God, my kid's going to die because there's too much THC in this gummy. Oh, bullshit. Still, though, it's going to be interesting to see how this relationship between the lieutenant governor and the governor of Texas shakes out, because this is a complete departure from everything that I've seen. Now, moving on to Genesis Digital, and we are still in the great state of Texas. Genesis Digital Assets Limited has acquired 1,000 air-cooled miners to mine Bitcoin. Good luck with that in Glasscock County. This is Oscar Perez writing for Bitcoin Magazine. Genesis Digital Assets Limited, one of the largest Bitcoin mining companies in the world in terms of hash rate, has announced it has entered a purchase agreement with Aradyne, a Silicon Valley-based provider of blockchain and AI infrastructure solutions. In the agreement, GDA will receive 1,000 teraflux AT2880-277 air-cooled miners, one of the latest inventions from Aradyne. The company plans to install all of them in their 40-megawatt data center in Glasscock County, Texas. Pausing to give you a little bit of reference. Glasscock County is extreme West Texas. Okay? Glasscock County is hot. In the summertime, it doesn't get any hotter. All of Texas is hot, but you want to talk about some blazing ass heat, go to Glasscock County in the middle of frickin' July or the 1st of August. Holy crap. Quote, GDA's strategic priority is to combine operational excellence with long-term sustainability, yada, 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 more suit speak, more suit speak. The air-cooled miner gets up to 260 terahashes per second of hash rate energy efficiency, as low as 16 joules per terahash, delivering performance and sustainability, and the new machines will participate in Texas's ERCOT demand response program once they're up and running. Quote, we're proud to partner with GDA. Yeah, more suit speak. This deployment shows GDA's United States expansion strategy, positioning Texas as a cornerstone of its operations due to its renewable energy assets, regulatory alignment with the industry, and innovation-friendly environments. A month ago, Aradyne released their new mining products featuring high-performance ASIC chips, specialized cooling systems, and fully integrated modular containers engineered for scalable megawatt-class mining operations. And then the CEO gives another suit speak statement, which I'm not going to get into. It's just that be aware. Texas is doubling down all over the place on Bitcoin, on mining. It's going to be hard. It's going to be really, really hard to beat. And as we saw last week, Governor Haggerty of Tennessee, I think is it Haggerty or I think it's Haggerty. He's been talking about Oak Ridge National Laboratory and the Tennessee Valley Authority. There's a whole history of high power solutions coming out of the state of Tennessee that reaches all the way back to the Manhattan Project. And I'm going to probably write up an article about that sometime this week. I've given a smaller one on Nostr and posted it also to X. And some people have received it fairly well, but it was kind of like a one-off quickie. I really want to dig into a little bit more of the history of Tennessee, because between the states of Tennessee and Texas, you're probably not going to find more states that have more power that they're willing to deliver to Bitcoin mining than both Texas and Tennessee. And it just so happens that the two most well-known Bitcoin co-working environments, for lack of a better term, is Bitcoin Park in Tennessee and the Bitcoin Commons in Austin, Texas. Texas and Tennessee are going to lead the United States in ways that I don't think anybody really understands just yet. But we got to move on, because SoapMiner is going to get you clean. If you got to get away clean, go to SoapMiner.com, where he has handmade tallow soaps. There's all kinds of soaps, in fact. There's Earl Grey tallow, there's goat's milk tallow, there's lemongrass, there's orange and clove, there's he's got a new one, redacted tallow. I love. Okay. This is one of my favorite products. I haven't used it yet because he just came out with this stuff. But here's the thing. It just so happened that I asked SoapMiner, does he have an activated charcoal tallow soap? And he wrote back, like, and I was like going, we could figure out a way to source some charcoal for you. It'd be great. And he's like, no need, dude. I'm already working on it. We're about to release it next week. And it's here. He says that this is his version of a low grit mechanics soap. The ingredients are thus: pure grass-fed beef tallow, activated charcoal powder, pumice powder, distilled water, and lye. So not very many ingredients. It's the activated charcoal powder that I'm the most interested in. That, honestly, is some of the best soap you will ever use as a deodorant soap. Not only does it get you clean, because it's going to do all that, but is that activated charcoal, man, it will literally suck up any odors on your body, and you'll have to work a sweat up to get stinky again, because you got to get clean. You got to get clean with SoapMiner's redacted tallow soap. He's also got regular rough cut tallow, tea tree, pine tar, cedarwood, pepper. He's got an entire line ending with lavender tallow. And if you use the code BitcoinAnd, you get 10% off your entire purchase. The Circle P is proud to represent SoapMiner in the Circle P. And this is where you support people like SoapMiner who are bringing you goods and services. And he's just like you. He's just a regular pleb. And then SoapMiner, if you tell him using the BitcoinAnd code, then he will know that I made a sale, and he will get me back on the backside with some sweet, sweet Satoshis. So just be aware. That's SoapMiner.com, SoapMiner.com. And Anthony Pompliano is back in the news. He's been making waves lately, but apparently something has actually happened this time, because from CoinDesk, and who's writing it but none other than Will Canny, which I don't think I've ever read before. But Anthony Pompliano is taking his Bitcoin native financial platform, ProCap BTC, public through a $1 billion, that's billion with a B, $1 billion merger with Columbus Circle Capital Corporation. It's a special purpose acquisition company, otherwise known as a SPAC, sponsored by an affiliate of Cohen and Company. And the transaction, announced today, positions the new entity named ProCap Financial Incorporated as one of the largest Bitcoin treasuries ever to hit public markets. In what's being called the largest initial fundraise for a public Bitcoin treasury company ever, or at least to date, ProCap raised $550 million in preferred equity and secured $225 million in convertible notes, giving future shareholders immediate exposure to Bitcoin through a structure designed to acquire Bitcoin ahead of the deal's close. Led by Anthony Pompliano, a well-known investor and vocal Bitcoin advocate, ProCap aims to operate at the intersection of digital assets and traditional finance. The company plans to generate profit not just by holding Bitcoin, but by actively deploying its Bitcoin balance sheet across yield-generating strategies, oh God, that mitigate risk and capitalize on crypto financial infrastructure. I don't like this. Quote, the legacy financial system is being disrupted by Bitcoin, and ProCap Financial represents our solution to the increasing demand for Bitcoin native financial services, at least among sophisticated investors, of which plebs ain't sophisticated. Sophisticated investors essentially is sort of another word for qualified investors, and I think it means you better have $1 million. The merger values the combined entity at up to $1 billion, depending on the final Bitcoin purchase price at closing. ProCap's BTC assets will be custodied until the transaction completes, giving investors near instant BTC exposure without having to wait for the company to go public. The transaction is expected to close before the end of this year, pending SEC review and shareholder approval. The Financial Times first reported that Pompliano was set to become the CEO of ProCap BTC and that the company was planning to raise $750 million to acquire Bitcoin. So yet another one. And I really don't like this. How are you going to generate your yield? I just don't like this one. Let's see, where's this? It was back up here somewhere. Okay, I'm trying to find this part where, generate profit, not by just holding BTC, but actively deploying its Bitcoin balance sheet across yield generating strategies that mitigate risk and capitalize on crypto financial infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, that's pure suit speak. That tells you nothing. What yield generating strategies? How are you mitigating risk? In what way are you capitalizing on what crypto financial infrastructure? That it's a pet peeve with me. I can't stand suit speak. It's like mission statements that drone on about leveraging their workforce to employ a rainbow-filled room-like environment. I don't even know what the hell that shit means. Please stop doing that. Speak plainly and tell me exactly how you're going to make money and exactly how much money you think you're going to make. Otherwise, it's all bullshit. And you know what else is bullshit is, yes, Iran. Bitcoin rebounds as market price in short-lived Iran conflict, according to Sebastian Sinclair from Decrypt. Let's see what he's got to say about this whole Middle East thing that we're in again. Bitcoin regained a footing late Sunday to trade above $101,000, recovering from earlier weekend losses as investors responded to the United States joining Israel airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites, and the gains came alongside modest moves in gold and, interestingly, a muted reaction across oil and equity futures, signaling traders expect a contained conflict rather than a sustained geopolitical shock. The U.S. operation, carried out in coordination with Israel, targeted Fordo, Nats, and Isfahan, using more than 125 aircraft and bunker-busting munitions. Iran responded with missile and drone attacks on Israel cities and threatened to strike U.S. military bases in the Gulf. Iran's foreign minister also flew to Moscow on Sunday for emergency consultations, while President Trump signaled a pause in further U.S. military action. A final decision on steps could come within 2 weeks. In the meantime, European leaders have urged restraint and signaled openness to renewed diplomacy. Despite the escalation, markets stabilized quickly. Gold briefly hit $33.98 before easing back to $33.74, while oil paired an early surge to finish up just 0.5%. Quote, the market is still expecting a short-lived war. I've got to pause. What short-lived war has anybody seen lately? I mean, in all honesty, this sounds like a new creature. It sounds like a new critter, the one that we've never seen before is a short-lived conflict, especially anywhere close to the Middle East. I don't know, man, but the Kobesi letter wrote on X, noting that oil remains far below levels historically associated with any disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. Crypto market showed similar posture while Bitcoin initially sold off during the height of the weekend headlines. Traders returned as risk appetite increased, and then they talk about shitcoins. Yeah, I don't know what they think a short-lived event of this nature is actually going to be. People have been itching to hit Iran since Hillary Clinton was in the State Department. I don't know what these people are talking about. So either the United States and Israel carpet bomb that entire country from end to end, north to south, east to west, and all points in between, or we're going to find ourselves in a very long conflict with Iran, just like it was with Iraq. And I'm tired of it. I'm so sick of it. I literally want to build a wall around the Middle East and just let them all fight each other. And whoever wins, I don't know, do a trade deal with. It's that bad. I've been dealing with this shit since the 70s. I mean, literally in the 70s, there was a problem with Iran. It's ever since, who was it? Not Khrushchev. Who am I thinking of? Is that dude that worked for Kennedy, that went over and made all the deals with Saudi Arabia and the Middle East for oil. It's how we ended up with the petrodollar. Ever since we did that, it has been nothing but one fucking problem after another, and it doesn't look like it's ending anytime soon. So when these people talk about short-lived, I'm like, dude, we've been jacking with this country since 1973. Short-lived for who? For God's sakes. But it is interesting insofar that it's going to affect all the numbers, which we are going to run right now. Futures and commodities. Oil is down 0.1% to 73.76. Ladies and gentlemen, it hit almost $78 over the weekend. Yeah, exactly. Brent North Sea is down 0.2 point, 76.87. Natural gas plumbing low, 3.25% to the downside, $3.72 per gallon or per thousand, and gasoline is up slightly, 0.05% to the upside, $2.33 a gallon. Gold is up 0.5 point to $34.04 and 2 dimes. Silver is up 0.63%. Platinum is up almost 2%, and palladium topping the charts at 3.25% to the upside. Meanwhile, most of ag is in the red today. Biggest loser looks to be wheat at 2.5% to the downside. Biggest winner is chocolate, 4.5% to the upside. So taking a little bit of a bounce on these last few weeks of losses. Live cattle is down almost 0.5 point. Lean hogs are up 0.13, and feeder cattle are down 0.15%. Meanwhile, I guess everybody's holding their breath in the markets because the Dow is crab walking sideways and only slightly in the green. S&P is up 0.25 point. The NASDAQ is up 0.4%, and the S&P is down 0.15%. So I think people are just holding their breath trying to figure out if this shit's going to be short-lived, like they say, or not. And we've got a drop in the Bitcoin price to $100,600. That is exactly a $2 trillion market cap. We can only purchase 29.6 ounces of shiny metal rocks with our one Bitcoin, of which there are 19,882,297.7 of. And average fees per block are really low, 0.03 BTC taken in fees on a per block basis. There look to be about 12 blocks carrying 24,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at high priority rates of 5 Satoshis per VByte. Low priority is going to get you in at 4. And we have lost yet more hash rate. We're down to 826.4 exahashes per second. Still pretty high. I mean, honestly, that's still a lot of mining going on. So who knows what the hell's going on. Anyway, from Hodl with Lore, which was last Thursday's Bitcoin and podcast episode. And I didn't do one on Friday simply because honestly, I just didn't have it in me. I was really tired. But I got progressively worse with 7,000 sats. Thank you, brother. He says, I was driving from Nevada to Ontario. Holy crap. That's a drive. Anyway, the last couple of days. Thank you for filling some of the mind-numbing void that would have been there without your show. Here's a small token of gratitude from me to you. Much love. Thank you, Progressively Worse. And Jay with 555 says, I wonder how many of those men hiding crypto in their marriage divorce actually just have gambling addictions, as opposed to trying to hide their fat stacks of Bitcoin. There's a lot of people that have gambling addictions. They're all altcoiners. Yodel with 511 says, howdy ho. Have a good weekend. I did. Thank you. I appreciate that. Turkey with 500 says, nothing is normal. Richard Whitman with 300 says, Coinbase blows. I know. It really does. God's Death with 237 says, thank you, sir, no thank you. Permanerd with 210 says, if you want to listen to a man that admits when he is wrong, NunyaBidness is that man. He is even less afraid of admitting when he is right. That's true, and that's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news you can use. Teenager has strong incentives to flee after pleading guilty to a $245 million Bitcoin heist, governor says. Wow, Ryan S. Gladwin decrypt. Jesus, this kid's like 19. He stole almost $250 million in Bitcoin. The F, man. Oh, no, I guess it's not the governor, the gov. The United States government is opposing the release of a 19-year-old after he pled guilty in November to a $245 million Bitcoin heist. No, I'm not replacing the word crypto with Bitcoin. He actually stole nothing but Bitcoin, I guess. Anyway, the government argued that the teenager's co-conspirators may help him flee the country before his sentencing so that he won't testify against them. Recently unsealed court documents reveal that Veer Chittel pleaded guilty in a Washington, D.C. court to conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to launder monetary instruments in connection with a Bitcoin scam that took place in 2024. According to the plea agreement, he faces between 20 and 25 years in prison, a potential fine of $50,000 to $500,000, and has been forced to forfeit items that were bought with proceeds from the offenses. The heist was carried out by socially engineering victims into leaking their private keys via a screen sharing service and sending their crypto funds from the Gemini exchange to a compromised wallet. On-chain detective involved in the case, Zach XBT, explained. One victim lost approximately $245 million in Bitcoin due to the sophisticated social engineering attack, court documents say. And a week after the theft, Chittel's parents were assaulted and kidnapped in a failed ransom attempt. Oh, that's an interesting twist. According to court documents unsealed last week, Chittel's role in the heist was to call potential victims pretending to be technical support from major companies, assure them of his legitimacy, and then convince the victim to click on the account access request from a co-conspirator. Chittel laundered his funds using trusted professional launderers, that's actually a quote, according to the documents, and alongside his conspirators. These conspirators, Chittel, Malone Lamb, and Jandil Serrano, then lived a luxurious life with the stolen funds, court documents and Zach XBT allege. The teen used his funds to purchase watches, designer clothes, and multiple cars, probably Lambos if I had to guess. Anyway, in searching Chittel's house, the FBI found $37 million in stolen crypto connected to the $245 million heist. The document also claims he had defrauded approximately 50 other victims, netting $3 million in personal proceeds. On Sunday, the government opposed Chittel's motion for release as he awaits his sentencing. Quote, considering the status of the case and the impending substantial prison sentence, Mr. Chittel, or Chittal, or however you pronounce it, has strong incentives to flee and little motivation to stay. Yeah, no shit. Any of the uncharged co-conspirators, including those involved in the October 2024 theft, could easily pay for Mr. Chittal to flee the country in an effort to avoid him testifying against them. That said, the government commands Chittel's admission and apology for the crime. Last month, 12 individuals were charged in connection with the heist, on top of Lamb and Serrano, who were also arrested and charged last year, and it appears that the government believes there may be more conspirators out there who have yet to be charged. So, yeah. 19 years old and is already going to go to prison for anywhere between, 15 and 25 years, or 20 and 25 years. This is, it's like, don't do that shit. come on, man. I mean, honestly, and what's really annoying about this is that it's like every other idiot that gambles with their life like this. Instead of immediately leaving the country and I don't know, somehow or another setting up some kind of like, company to buy maybe a house somewhere in, I don't know, Central America or something like that. No, he spends it on watches. Some of these, I've seen million and a half dollar watches. You can blow through a shit ton of money just buying watches by themselves. Do you really? And designer clothes. Really? And Lambos. You know what I've said about Lambos. They're fucking awful cars. They're air cooled for one. Did you know that? Lamborghini, for the most part, almost every Lamborghini I know of is an air cooled engine, which means what? You need air flowing across the engine to actually cool it. Why is that important? Do you know how many pictures of Lamborghinis I've seen on fire or had clearly been on fire that's right next to a gas pump? Why is that important? What's the tell? Because they're just slowly cruising around town in their Lambo. They don't realize that they need to actually have some kind of speed to get air to flow across the engine so that it will cool the engine. So after heating and overheating the engine for God only knows how long, what do? They pull into a gas station to get more gas. Now there's literally no airflow going on, and that's when the engine decides to, you know what? Screw a bunch of this, I'm going home, and catches on fire, and then, your $240,000 supercar burns to a crisp. Right next to a gas pump, like the safest place in the world to be, right? Everything is stupid. And it's really annoying. It just is. But we've got good news. Ashigaru has brought back Whirlpool. On-chain privacy CoinJoin has returned. This is out of Atlas 21, by the way. The development team behind the Ashigaru wallet has officially revived the Whirlpool CoinJoin solution, once again offering users the ability to improve the privacy of their Bitcoin transactions. The release of Ashigaru Whirlpool represents a faithful implementation of the original protocol developed by Samurai Wallet. The platform allows users to voluntarily participate in zero-link coin joins, ensuring full privacy for both past and future transactions by breaking deterministic links between inputs and outputs with 100% entropy, according to the announcement. All connections to the Whirlpool coordinator occur exclusively via the Tor network. The core architecture remains true to the original design created by TDevD, Samurai's Zero-Link, and Laurent MT of OXT, while introducing updates developed by the open-source Ashigaru project over the past 6 months. One of the key innovations lies in the user interface. The Whirlpool introduces Ashigaru Terminal and Terminal User Interface application that marks a clear shift from the previous graphic user interface model. The new system uses an Electrum server as the backend, removing the dependency on Dojo and making the solution compatible with platforms such as Start9, Umbrel, and MyNode. This architecture change also ensures that the Ashigaru team has no access to users' master public keys or XPubs. Ashigaru Terminal is available excuse me, on all major desktop operating systems, Windows, Mac, Linux. To keep continuous reaffirming or remixing active, users must keep their computers connected and online, properly configuring power settings to prevent automatic sleep modes or wireless disconnections. The Ashigaru Whirlpool code is publicly available for community review and contributions. And there are some fees involved. I won't get into that. If you're going to be a Whirlpool user, then you can damn well go find out the fees for yourself. You don't need me, because I would bet my bottom dollar that most of you guys out there aren't using Whirlpool. We probably all should. I haven't really ever used Whirlpool, but here's what I love about this. You know, the Samurai Wallet guys are still in jail. You know, we still have a problem with this. And here we have the Ashigaru team saying, screw it. We're putting Whirlpool back up. So my question becomes, are the developers in the Ashigaru team, have they insulated their identity well enough that they cannot be known? Therefore, they cannot be charged, because I guarantee you, if they find out who these people are, the SEC or the FBI or Department, let's just say the Department of Justice, will find them and will charge them, and we'll have the Samurai Wallet issue all over again. And I'm getting kind of sick of watching developers try to do the right thing for the rest of the world and then get hosed by people who just absolutely demand nothing but 100% fealty. You can't use anybody else's money. You can't use anybody else's privacy solutions. No, you've got to AML, KYC, yourself out the wazoo. And the only thing that actually helps are 19-year-old kids who know what telephone number to call to try to get you to click on something that's going to screw you over. That's all KYC AML actually does. It serves the purposes of thievery. That's all it's ever done. That's all it can do, and that's all it will ever do. So while I applaud the Ashigaru team, I am hoping beyond all levels of hope that they have done everything that they can do, that nobody knows who these people are, that nobody will ever know who these people are. I don't know if that's true. I can only assume that if it's not true, then they have an ironclad lock on their defense as to why it is they should not be charged with any crimes by spinning Whirlpool back up. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Meanwhile, we've got a couple of news stories out of Norway. First up, Norway's Green Minerals announces the adoption of their very own, you guessed it, Bitcoin Treasury strategy. Bitcoin Magazine, written by Oscar Perez. Today, Green Mineral AS, a mineral miner in Norway, has announced the adoption of a Bitcoin Treasury strategy, marking a shift in its financial approach to protect against inflation and geopolitical uncertainty. The deep sea mining company aims to diversify its treasury by integrating Bitcoin into its balance sheet, moving away from the reliance on traditional fiat currencies. Quote, in this era of significant monetary expansion, maintaining a strong balance sheet is more critical than ever, said the executive chairman of Green Minerals, Stale Rodal. Bitcoin's decentralized non-inflationary properties make it an attractive alternative to traditional fiat, and by integrating a Bitcoin treasury strategy, we are not only mitigating fiat risks, but also reaffirming our commitment to financial innovation and the sustainable creation of long-term value, end quote. They aim to finance up to $1.2 billion in partnership with others, with Bitcoin exposure forming a key part of the capital structure. The move supports the upcoming launch of the first high-efficiency deep-sea mining program under its Partnership for Responsible Production. Quote, Green Minerals emphasizes that its core operational strategy remains steadfast. The Bitcoin Treasury program is implemented to support the company's project plans. Green Minerals also sees the blockchain technology as an important role in playing in mining to ensure supply chain transparency, mineral origin certification, and operational efficiency. Yeah, that's all bullshit. You're not using blockchain to ensure supply chain transparency or mineral origin certification. Maybe operational efficiency, but doubtful. But you're definitely not going to be able to use blockchain to certify where a mineral came from. Blockchains don't do that. The only thing that blockchain for Bitcoin does is verify a transaction is valid and make sure that once it's mined, that it cannot be undone. Right? So why does it not work here? Because I would actually have to input like as a human, I would say, yeah, this, I don't know, this chunk of gold came from this latitude and longitude. I'm going to stick it in the blockchain. Okay. That means that I have to trust your initial transaction of making sure that the information was not only correct, but that you're not lying. Because what if somebody said, I'll pay you $100,000 if you, instead of saying it came from these coordinates, that they really came from over here, which is not really where they came from, for whatever purpose. I don't know. Maybe he's Lex Luthor and he's got some kind of nefarious mustache twisting plan involving, I don't know, a maiden tied up and on train tracks. I don't know. I don't give a shit. All I do know is the guy that's actually going to put this stuff into the blockchain is probably going to go, $100,000 sounds really good. Sure, boss. See, that's why blockchains don't work. We always used to make fun of this thing called bananas on the blockchain, because there was literally companies out there saying, we're going to be able to use the blockchain to verify the origin, the country of origin of this coffee or these bananas or these, I don't know, mangoes and papayas. I don't give a shit. It was never going to work. It's still never been actually done. So that part of that statement is complete and utter bullshit. Anyway, the company plans to introduce a new key performance indicator called Bitcoin per share, which will provide shareholders with a transparent reporting on its digital asset holdings. Green Minerals expects to acquire its first Bitcoin in the coming days. Quote, this approach is particularly well suited for a company with such a long project horizon as Green Minerals, said Rodal. Quote, with significant future capital expenditures planned for the production equipment and the program offering a robust hedge against currency debasement, end quote. Green Minerals says it also sees long-term potential in blockchain. Beyond treasury use, it plans to apply blockchain technology throughout its operations to ensure, earlier what we said, supply chain transparency, improving efficiency, and certify mineral origins. That's bullshit, but here's a quote. This strategic move reinforces Green Minerals' position not only as a leader in sustainable mineral extraction, but also as an innovator in financial and technological practices. The company invites all stakeholders to monitor the forthcoming updates as it paves the way towards broader blockchain adoption. So I definitely smell a bunch of horsepucky here. We'll have to see, but it's going to be interesting how they move forward when the second part of the news out of Norway isn't quite so bright and fluffy. Also from Oscar Perez and also out of Bitcoin Magazine, Norway plans to temporarily ban new Bitcoin and crypto mining centers to conserve energy. Sounds like Norway might have a conflict of interest here. Today, the government of Norway announced its plans to introduce a temporary ban on establishing new Bitcoin and cryptocurrency mining data centers. The government concluded that it was better to redirect electricity to other industries and economic sectors, and that it would be better for the national interest. Quote, the Labour Party government has a clear intention to limit the mining of cryptocurrency in Norway as much as possible, said the Minister for Digitalization and Public Administration, Carrie Ann Tung. The ruling Labour Party has attributed the upcoming ban to the excessive energy consumption by power-intensive Bitcoin and crypto mining operations, which it says offers little benefit to the broader economy. Quote, crypto mining is very power-intensive and generates little in the way of jobs and income for the local community, she added. A temporary ban could be introduced during the autumn of 2025, according to the Norwegian government. So Norway pulling out the Glock 9 and pointing it to its head and blowing its own brains out. There you go. Texas still is a model of how this actually does work. If it works for a state the size of Texas, it's going to work for a country the size of Norway. I'm just saying. Now, last up for the day, Bitcoin ASIC producer Canaan pilots U.S. production, but in a twist, exits artificial intelligence business. Adrian Zmunsky Cointelegraph, Bitcoin mining application-specific integrated circuit manufacturer Canaan has completed a pilot production run inside the United States and has fully abandoned its artificial intelligence hardware manufacturing efforts. In a statement sent to Cointelegraph on Monday, a Canaan representative said that it, quote, has successfully completed a pilot production run in the United States, replicating its Malaysia-based operations. Canaan also announced the discontinuation of its AI semiconductor business in what it said is a strategic realignment aimed at sharpening its focus. Quote, I believe that doubling down on our core strengths in crypto infrastructure and Bitcoin mining is the most strategic path forward for Canaan, said Nanjing Zhang, chairman and CEO of Canaan. A Canaan representative acknowledged that production costs are higher in the U.S., but said that the company views this initiative not just as a hedge against tariffs, but as a potential strategic investment in long-term resilience, end quote. Producing closer to the North American market, the company added, will help improve delivery cycles, respond faster to local demand, and navigate future geopolitical or regulatory shifts. The statements follow recent reports that Bitmain, Canaan, and MicroBT, which collectively produce most of the world's Bitcoin mining ASICs, are bringing production to the U.S. And I believe I brought you that story last week. This addition of the discontinuation of its AI infrastructure plans is what I think is the most interesting part about this story. Let's continue. Canaan's representative noted that producing Bitcoin mining ASICs in the U.S. is part of a long-term effort and is more than just a response to tariffs. Quote, we're actively working to optimize our United States cost structure with the goal of limiting production costs. Well, of course you are. Why wouldn't you? The representative said the company's products manufactured in Malaysia are currently subject to a 10% tariff. When it comes to imported components and raw materials, the tariffs are less clear, which makes expense planning very difficult. For this reason, Canaan's U.S. expansion will ultimately depend on achieving commercial viability through a combination of cost management, customer demand, and clarity around the tariff environment, end quote. The company addressed potential concerns over U.S. national security standards, highlighting that its devices shipped into the U.S. are produced in Malaysia and certified by local authorities. The representative added, quote, should we expand our U.S. production further, we intend to ensure that our operations align with evolving U.S. standards for technology as well as security, end quote. The comments come after the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency halted the delivery of thousands of Bitmain ASICs in November of 2024, following an investigation by U.S. authorities into Chinese chip designer Zemin Softgo over an alleged business relationship with U.S.-sanctioned telecommunications firm Huawei. The devices were only recently released. So the abandonment of the AI is really the centerpiece of this story here, because a lot of the Bitcoin mining infrastructure is seeing shifts towards AI. We've seen that over the past year, really. We've seen like, okay, well, we're going to devote some of our megawattage on this particular mining thing. We're going to just we're going to do AI stuff. We're going to get some GPUs. We're going to divert the power to power these other machines. And then we started seeing some of the Bitcoin miners start talking about maybe they get into the AI chip manufacturing. And it looks like Canaan tried and just said, you know what? No, let's just mine Bitcoin. Because I use artificial intelligence. I use it every day. There are some things that it's really good at. There are some things that it's very helpful with. Is it intelligence? No. It's definitely artificial, but it is not intelligent. And anybody who tells you that this shit is going to be able to think anytime in the foreseeable future is fooling themselves, and they're trying to fool you. It's not going to happen, but that doesn't make AI useless. It doesn't make everything that comes out of AI that you use it for, useless. It is a very, very useful tool to have. And like I said, I use it every single day. And I'm learning more and more as I go along. How does it work? How does it act? What is its response in these particular situations? And I actually recommend for those people that are out there that are like, the truth is always in some kind of shade of gray. There's two kinds of people in AI. One, AI is going to solve all of our problems and it's going to be more smart. It's going to be smarter than any human ever, and it's going to be smarter than all humans ever have been combined. And then there's the people who are like, no, man, this shit is like completely bogus and it's going to do nothing but take jobs. It's like, it's either one or the other with these people. The truth actually exists somewhere between those two extremes. All right. That's not hard to conceive of. But there's a lot of people that are like, I don't want to learn how to use this. You're going to have to. I know. And for the people that are leaning more towards this thing will never amount to anything and it's a complete scam, if you're not seeing what it can do, it's not that it can do all the shit that the people on the other end of the spectrum say it's going to be smarter than humans. No, it's not going to do that shit either, but it's not useless. There's a lot of stuff that it can do, but I kind of recommend that for those people that think that it can't do anything and that it's just stupid and it's just a waste of time, take a small class. There's probably a few free ones, because I think a lot of people, I think the term Chat GPT really screwed up the initial part of what AI might be able to do for people. I think they screwed it up by naming the thing Chat GPT. Even though there's way more stuff out there than just Chat GPT, that was the first word that everybody heard of. That was the first word that was marketed, or at least successfully. So most people think of it's a chat bot. You chat with it. No, you don't. In a way you do, but I think a lot of people thought, what should I don't know, like, hi, what's your name? Oh, that's interesting. My name's this. And I literally, these are some of the very first conversations I saw happening with ChatGPT when people were like, hey man, this thing just came out. Check out what I did. And it's like nothing. It's like talking about your dog. No. Why don't you say, give me five, it's like, ask me 5 questions about who I am. And just ask them one at a time. Let me answer. Ask another one. Do that 5 times, right? So ask me 5 questions. Do that exercise, right? And then ask it one thing after that. If I wanted to start a business of my own, let's say you don't have one. If I wanted to start a business of my own, given what you know about me from those 5 questions, give me 10 examples of what you think I might be able to do as either a side hustle or starting my own entrepreneurship, and watch what happens. Does that mean that it's like, oh, well, I should do everything it says? No, that's not the point of the exercise. The point of the exercise is maybe it will fire up something that you weren't thinking of. And that's where a lot of what I use AI for today really comes from. What have I not seen about this thing? Read this webpage. Here's what I think is going on in this particular news story. Am I missing anything? Is there a nuance here that I'm not getting? This is one of the myriad ways that I'm using artificial intelligence at this point. And it's honestly very, very good at these kinds of things. And it's also good at a lot of other things that I haven't really figured out yet. And there's a lot of other things that I use it for that I don't have time to illustrate here. But I am saying, if you think that this shit's just going to go away, you're putting yourself in a boatload of danger. Please go find a free class or something like that. Right now, I'm taking a class from Jack Spirko, who's host of the Survival Podcast. Cost me $100 to get in. I can't believe I actually got in because he was only taking 100 people. It's a very good class because he's approaching it from here's how you use it for generating content ideas because he's a podcaster. Here's how you use it for generating ideas on what business you might be able to run in your future, given what skill sets you have. Is there something I'm missing? Is there something that, I mean, I think I know what I could do, but is there something that would be more interesting that I haven't seen yet? He's using it in a way for marketing, to be a marketing manager and a person in marketing that comes up with ideas. And it's not bad. It's really not bad. It's not bad at all. And I mean, sure, he's going to do that class again, and it's probably going to cost more than $100 next time. But the reason you want somebody else to tell you how to use ChatGPT or artificial intelligence isn't because you're dumb and you don't know how to use it. It's that when you see how other people use the same tool, whether it's AI or, I don't know, a socket wrench, you might actually go, oh shit, I never thought of using it that way. And then all of a sudden, now you're armed with being able to do something else. So it won't take you that much long or that much time to go find potentially even a free class and just give it a shot. See if you can get it to do something that is of value to you. Because I guarantee you there are millions of people that are starting to use this every day. And if you're one of the ones that 5 years from now, you still haven't touched any one of these things to figure out how it can work for you, then you may be working for one of these other people. Just let that sink in, and I'll see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.